proving yourself is when you keep striving to live a truly meaningful life. So what is your take? So a couple of key thoughts. First of all is the idea of like proving yourself, because I think this is an area that I've kind of like struggled a lot with, and this is kind of what inspired me to do this in the first place, which is that I almost try to like prove things to myself out of like, like hate. Like I hated this experience so much that I wanted to prove that, I was definitely better, or I felt so insecure that I wanted to like make sure that to almost like other people, but also to myself, that I was actually capable. And so I think the motivation behind proving yourself is very important. If it's out of like disgust, hate, insecurity, it's probably not a good thing to prove to prove things about yourself with those things being like the driving force. Whereas if it's genuinely something positive, like I truly want to see my potential. I truly care about this particular purpose that we mentioned before, like education. And I want to be able to see not just the best in myself, the best in everyone. And I feel like when you have a much more constructive approach towards proving yourself, even on the days where you don't necessarily prove yourself, you are able to bounce back quite quickly. Whereas if it's hate and you aren't able to prove to yourself, you might just end up in a massive negative spiral where you continue you try to prove to yourself, but you keep on failing, and you keep struggling to do it again, but you keep on failing again. And yeah, it just ends up in a very negative spiral where it's not very constructive. And so that's my take on proving yourself. Cool. So proving yourself is when you keep on striving to live a truly meaningful life. I think the word like striving is very important, because it's not like when you live a truly meaningful life, it's striving. You almost have to like fight for it in a sense. It's not something that comes very passively. It's something that's active. And I think that verb there is very important, because like if you just, live passively like a feather in the wind, like I mentioned before, like potentially it is possible to live a truly meaningful life. But oftentimes it's the wind that decides the direction of your life, not yourself. And so the idea of like striving and like really swimming upstream, I think is something I truly agree with, because honestly, like everything in this life is like rented. Like your body is rented, your relationships are rented, and if you don't pay rent every day, you're going to lose it eventually. For example, if you don't go to the gym every day, you're eventually going to lose your muscle. If you don't talk to your spouse or your girlfriend every day, eventually she's going to leave you. And so I really do like the word like strive, because it kind of shows that life is rented, honestly. And in order for you to live a truly meaningful life, you're going to have to, first of all, pay off the rent, and also on top of that, keep on working hard to create your truly meaningful life. And I think that's very important. So when you keep on striving to live a truly meaningful life, and with meaningful, it's a very interesting word, because the thing is, for me, for the longest time, and maybe even now, like my idea of meaningful is oftentimes biased by society. And I feel like, maybe I'm arrogant in saying this, but I feel like it's arrogant for me to say that I know that it's arrogant for me to say that my meaningful life is purely driven by myself and it's not influenced by external like people or social media or external influences. So for a truly meaningful life, I think it's very important for it to be like internal and not like purely external. Now, I do acknowledge that like you can have external influences and they're good, but I think it's very important for you to like constantly challenge them, because I realize when I don't challenge them in my own life, that's when it leads to a lot of just, anger, frustration, and just guilt, because you realize that you're not like truly living a life that's meaningful to you, but it's meaningful to other people, whether that's, going for YouTube subscribers or getting high grades, when it's not actually something that you care about that deeply, but you care about it because society cares about it. And I think that's a very interesting point, because this entire like sentiment, proving yourself is when you keep striving to live a truly meaningful life. You honestly, like, I've realized you have to keep on pushing to live a meaningful life, because there's constantly this external like influence trying to like push you towards a non-meaningful life. And if you don't like continually like battle all these like external influences, then it's very likely that you're going to end up proving things to other people rather than proving things to yourself. So yeah, that's kind of my take on that.